like you said, it's like the international game is very big.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see the market a lot easier.
Yeah.
But like our professional, I mean, that we have the NWSL here in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
which is our women's professional league, and it's not always easy to access video footage or even watch those games.
Hey podcast, before we get into today's podcast, just want to say thank you to you and everybody that listens to the podcast and watches us across all platforms. Second of all, two things. Your feedback means the world to us. We appreciate everybody that's left comments and reviews. So don't forget to leave your comment and review on this podcast and any of the other podcasts so that we know what you guys want to listen to next. And follow and subscribe to listen. And we hope you enjoy this podcast. Hey podcast, it's Bryan. In this episode, Jimmy and I sat down last year before the Women's World Cup to talk our predictions, the impact that the game has had globally, some of the challenges that we see and we face in girls soccer and women's soccer development, and helping grow an identity for soccer here in the United States. As always, comment and leave a review, and we hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey guys, I'm Bryan.
And I'm Jimmy.
And this is Pod Football. The Women's World Cup is upon us. We've got some great teams that'll be out there. The U.S., France, Spain, Japan, countless teams. Brazil will be there.
Yeah.
Some pretty good competition. And we've seen a huge growth in the development of the women's soccer game globally.
Yeah, it's been massive. I mean, women's soccer, it's been growing very quickly across the world. The U.S. initiated that first, I think, movement, making women's soccer a big thing in the world globally. U.S. women's national team obviously has won the World Cup numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
They've been that staple in the women's game as that competitive team, that top team. They're always there. And so it's really nice to see that there's other nations growing the game in their country, and they're starting to get up to the level that our U.S. women's national team is at now.
Yeah, there's teams that are starting to compete, so we're starting to see teams even out.
Yeah, massively, definitely even out. I mean, I think some of these countries, these bigger nations, teams like Bryan mentioned earlier, we've got Japan, we've got France, England, Brazil, the Netherlands, right? I mean, Norway, Sweden, these big Icelandic nations, that are coming in very strong, and they've really applied their youth development model, I think, that they used from their male counterparts on their male side, and have really applied it towards their female. And I think more encouragement from those nations, encouraging females to be a part of sport. Not just soccer, but or football, but also other sports. And so I think they're getting this growth for women and in women empowerment, and I think it's really strong leading into this cycle for the World Cup. I think you're going to see a lot of really good teams and some really good soccer and really good football being played this Women's World Cup.
So Jimmy, we both work with female soccer players at different age groups. You work with the youth groups, and I work with the collegiate age women. What are some of the things that you've noticed about the youth girls soccer player?
Yeah, girls soccer, boys soccer has, it's a little bit different, but I mean, from your perspective, Bryan, like you're saying, at least for the younger girls that I've been working with, and what I have been in the past, I would say that the female soccer players, young girls, they are extremely smart. They are very, very smart. They are very team-oriented. They are not so individual, I would say. They are very excited to be a part of a team. They want to help their teammates. They want to be friends with their teammates. They want to make this personal connection, I think, and I think that's extremely valuable. I'm starting to see some really fantastic soccer players, some very athletic individuals, and they are growing quickly. The girls that I have seen over the years have gone almost night and day. I've seen a massive growth in some individuals from one year to the next. Sometimes not even being able to recognize their abilities and their playing on the field, just because they've grown so much. I've seen a huge difference there between the boys and the girls, is that the girls can grow huge amounts over a short span of time compared to some of the boys teams that I've worked with in the past.
Now it's nice that you mention about the girls player that is team oriented, because at the college level, players are team oriented, but I feel like sometimes when there is adversity or they're under pressure, they forget about the team. They go into a little bit of their shell, and it's normal. You're under pressure, but I feel like sometimes they want to do the job on their own, and it's very difficult to do that. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've seen our older women struggle with. One thing that I've seen, there are some women that did grow up playing with boys and guys, and you can definitely tell those girls apart. It isn't very difficult to note the difference. And I think some of the things that those women possess are just more fluidity in the game. And again, when those adverse moments do occur, they're able to solve those problems a little bit better.
No, definitely. I think it is a huge benefit for females to play with males, girls to play with boys, women to play with men. I think those are all definite bonuses. But I do think that also potentially maybe one of the reasons why female athletes or female soccer players in this situation are, starting to go over and play more with boys, men, males. I think also maybe, and one of the reasons why they're developing quickly is it's not a bad thing, but it's, the men's game is very easily accessible on TV. It's very easy to watch. It's also easy to find a men's league game, on a weekend or a Sunday morning, out by a local field that maybe by your community in your city. I don't see that a lot with the women's game. You don't see a lot of women's games being played like that. And there's I would say a lot of females that are out there that would want to be a part of something like that. I just don't think we have enough of it. It's almost like the female market's been closed off, and it's almost like it's not been able to get itself out there. I mean, I think more female athletes more female soccer players would watch the game if it was more easily accessible for them.
Of course. For people like myself that don't have cable and all that, I mean, all I see is men's soccer on TV.
Your social media feed.
On social media. Very rarely, and it does pop up, but very rarely do I see highlights of women, unless it's like national team level.
Yeah, internationally, definitely. Like you said, it's like the international game is very big. I think you see the market a lot easier. Yeah. But like our professional, I mean, that we have the NWSL here in the United States, which is our women's professional league, and it's not always easy to access video footage or even watch those games. I mean, last year for me, I was trying to watch some of the NWSL games, and the streaming service would crash. Yeah. And so trying to convince and get young, youth girls soccer players to watch soccer, I think it's ideal for them to watch women play. Yeah. And so when I'm referencing to the girls to watch soccer, it's been a challenge, because the only thing that I can really offer up to them is, hey, did you watch the U.S. women's national team game? Rather than, did you go watch Sky Blue FC, Seattle Reign, Portland Thorns play, Houston Dash, the NWSL teams. I know it's very common, but even seeing younger girls teams show up to the college game. Do you guys have those teams showing up during those college games?
Yeah, and there's always local teams, and it's always good. I mean, it obviously makes our women feel good, because there's support, there's people out there cheering us on. But also it's an opportunity for that young player to see soccer at the next level. I think it is extremely important, and you are tasked with one of the most difficult projects. I think one of the most difficult projects that the U.S. has at developing the successor of the throne. We've seen some very successful women's national teams in recent years.
Definitely.
I think we have a good group right now, and I think that we should be focused on developing a competitive group ready to take charge and follow in their footsteps.
No, definitely. I think, like you're saying, Brian, from the perspective, it's growing, it's getting there, it's getting better. But I do think sometimes at the girls' level of soccer, it's sometimes coaches are trying to find a blueprint. Like almost like this is the way to do it. Yeah. This is how you develop girl soccer players, and that's the only way to do it kind of process. I think sometimes we are trying to put them in a box and say that they are different from males. We understand there are differences, but what say that we can't have more creative players like a female Iniesta or a female player that's like Busquets? Are we seeing these types of younger girls coming into the game? I understand, like U.S. women's national team, we have Mallory Pui, younger female that's breaking in at a very young age into our national team. But why can't we have more of those? Are we, as coaches, not providing that enough freedom of expression to female athletes? We feel like we need to contain them, or are we just trying to treat them differently? Whereas I don't really see it that way. We're developing soccer players, what the male side, that's the female side, can do just as well. And instead of pigeonholing them and giving them a box and saying that you can't get there. I don't see that being the situation. I think we need to keep it open so that those players can develop and get to that level. I mean, at least this is just my personal opinion. They see the women's teams from Spain and the women's teams from Brazil, and you compare them to their men's teams, you're starting to see a similar style of play being crossed between the two. Between the U.S. men's national team and the U.S. women's national team, I see, two different styles of play. Now, I understand there's two different coaches, but these countries have a designed style of play, an identity, where our U.S. men's national team and our women's national team don't really have that. They do have their own identity, but not an identity as a country.